have it.
Faerie Dragon. Welcome back to Heroes and Whiskey. We are 3D printing our way through the D&D 5e Monster Manual, and today we are printing monster number 87, the Faerie Dragon. So I don't know what it is about these smaller monsters that's given me such a hard time. If you've been around the channel for a while, you remember that we attempted to print cockatrice many months ago, only to find that every single model was either way too big, or they broke upon printing, and I feel like that curses back with this Faerie Dragon. There are actually a bunch of really nice Faerie Dragons out on my mini factory. Epic Miniatures has this great 3-pack for just $10. This one from Fotis Minis is just $5, and it has a lot of fidelity to the design in the manual. Epic also makes this Faerie Dragon Queen, which is $15, which is probably way too much for this particular monster, but the design is cool. But the one that jumped out to me the most was this one from Clay Cyanide. Now it's $12, but I thought it looked cool, so this is the direction I decided to go. Now, I should really have been paying closer attention to the listing because it doesn't actually say how large it is. So, needless to say, I was a bit surprised to bring it into my slicer, and it's about 10 times bigger than it should be for our 25 to 32 millimeter scale. I think the Faerie Dragon is supposed to be the size of a cat, and this is a hell of a cat. So I shrunk it down to the size I thought was safe without making any of the parts too fragile, and while the final size is closer, I wasn't exactly successful in my attempt. Of course, the Faerie Dragon is a forest prankster, giggling invisibly while adventurers wrestle with its pranks, but it's easily bought off with treasure or baked goods, so I have to be honest, I'm not really sure how I would ever use one in an adventure, but here's an encounter narrative which I'll drop in the description.
Flittering before you is a Faerie Dragon, a whimsical and mischievous creature, small in size but vibrant in color with butterfly-like wings and a playful, intelligent expression. In the heart of an enchanted forest where magic hangs in the air like a tangible melody, it flutters with a joyful ease, its iridescent scales shimmering in the dappled sunlight. It dances through the air, a blur of sparkling hues, weaving spells of illusion and laughter as easily as it breathes. A living embodiment of forest whimsy. Noticing the party, the Faerie Dragon's eyes twinkle with curiosity and mirth, and it prepares to unleash a burst of its enchanting, magical breath, ready to turn the encounter into a playful, albeit chaotic, encounter.
Now, when printed, this Faerie Dragon looks really nice. I really appreciate the unique approach where it very much feels like a dragon, but with the obvious butterfly elements. The tail and the body definitely look dragon-like, and the face especially has a lot of great detail. On the table, it looks great. Printing ended up being a different matter entirely. To be fair, it printed fine, but because I had to shrink it down, the wings broke off multiple times throughout the painting and filming process. I mean, the juncture is quite small, and even the slightest bit of handling snapped the wings right off. But if you're okay with a few rounds of glue, it's a really nicely designed little figure. And to be fair, I'm commenting on it scaled down to a reasonable size for 32mm gameplay, and it's clearly not designed for that. So I think my one suggestion for designers is to be sure that you include the real-world size of your figure, just so we know what we're getting. And even scaled down, it is still way too big at 25 to 32mm scale. Again, it's supposed to be the size of a cat, and this guy is larger than a human, but I honestly think it would be too frail printed at actual size. In terms of resources, we printed it alongside the Etten and some other bigger figures, so it took almost 11.5 hours, and it was $12, which was maybe a little too much for the hassle. I do think it was designed to be printed much larger than game scale, so we're at $876 and 39 days and 3 hours of total print time. This Faerie Dragon from Clay Cyanide is a really nicely designed figure. It works best at about double the scale that you'll print if you're running a 25 to 32mm tabletop, but with a little TLC, you can definitely print it smaller and add some sprightly fun to your adventure. Next up, we have the hot-headed Flame Skull.